Joining me now is an expert on all of this, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Her brand new book is titled The Art of Power, My Story as America's First Woman Speaker of the House. Madam Speaker, it's great to see you. Thank you so much. The book is wonderful, and I'm going to ask you all about the book. But I want to obviously start with the election. You've got a new ticket. The excitement last night was certainly palpable in North Philly. And there are a lot of revelations in the book that we need to get to. But first, this ticket. Is it fair to say that the Democrats have gotten their mojo back after President Biden dropped out just 2.5 weeks ago?
Well, I think we've always had our mojo. Now it's campaign time, and we were ready. I'm very proud of the campaign, but it does speak not only to our readiness, but the opportunity the public presented to us. They were eager for us to get moving. They wanted to be joyful, they wanted to be hopeful, and this campaign is giving them that.
And he certainly was portrayed and seemed to be the happy warrior last night. Is it fair to say also that Donald Trump, who claims he's thrilled about this choice, he thinks it's, the second best choice or not as good a choice as Josh Shapiro?
But it's not up to him to decide that. This is Kamala Harris's choice. She's going to be elected president of the United States. It's not a question of who can help you win. It's who can help you lead and guide the country into the future. And the combination has a certain magic to it. Josh is wonderful. We all love Josh. She actually had 6 or maybe more good choices. The governor of Michigan took herself out. But any of the other candidates who are still in there show a great bench in the Democratic Party as we go forward, and certainly Josh among them, but the others as well. And who cares what he thinks about her choice? He's got enough trouble with his own choice for vice president.
But there are House members who are very excited about Tim Walz because he was in the House for 12 years. He came in 2006, the year you became Speaker. Some people are reporting that you had a lot to do with this because you knew him better than most.
Well, I knew him better than most, but I knew them all. And as I've said, any one of them would have been great.
Was he your first choice?
I didn't have a first choice. But let me say this. Tim Walz came to the Congress. Actually, my daughter Christine had him in one of her boot camps for that year that we had to take back the House for the Democrats. We had a big victory, and that class is a big class. And again, took back the House for the American people, took the majority, and they are so excited. The class is taking particular ownership of Tim, having events, Zooms, all the rest, but all of the members respect him highly. In the Congress, he came from his years in wearing the nation's uniform, as opposed to the current candidate for president who had, spurs or something on his feet, and he couldn't serve our country in uniform, and he's criticizing our candidate. But in any event, to stick with Tim, he came and so well liked, nominated and elected by the members to be our top Democrat on the Veterans Affairs Committee, where he brought his knowledge, his priorities, his vision for how we could help our vets better. And he, working with Chet Edwards of Texas, who was the appropriator, and our caucus, did more for veterans in that period of time than since the GI Bill.
Well, J.D. Vance has criticized him as never having been in combat.
Has he?
Well,
has J.D. Vance been in combat?
Well, I think he was over in Iraq, I think, as a public relations officer, as a communications officer. I think that's the case. But he's also said that this is anti-Semitic, that Josh Shapiro was not chosen because he wasn't against Israel enough.
Well, let me say this. We have some challenges in our country. As I say all the time, what matters are the kitchen table issues for the American people. What matters is the distinction between the two visions for our country and the experience that has been brought. Joe Biden, 16 million jobs created. I don't like to use his name, but Donald Trump, the worst job creation record since Herbert Hoover.
What about playing religion or or racial politics.
That has no place in our politics, and they know it, and they're desperate.
Do you think
and
it
they're
works?
Desperate. They're desperate. I think that there is. It may work for their base, but it shouldn't work for our country.
You watched the debate, as we all did, and you were so close to President Biden. You've said you loved him.
Yeah.
And, in fact, by a lot of reporting, you were closer to him than you were to Barack Obama. You both came from the legislative branch.
Yeah.
You appreciated the way he worked the Congress and understood the Congress and the Senate, particularly, but the Congress as well. So how painful was it to see that debate and to realize that the House, only 5 seats had to be switched, that you might lose the House, not regain it? With him at the top of the ticket.
Of course, I'm very concerned because when we won, when we took back, one of the reasons I went into leadership was to win the House for the Democrats, because we had lost 94, 96, 98, 2000, blah, blah, blah. So I said, I know how to do this. We're gonna do this. And Tim Walz was part of that. A representative of heartland of America for rural America, for our veterans, small businesses, even a small business owner. So that's what we're about. It wasn't just, though, about the House. I thought it was very important for us to make sure
and that
Donald Trump
and
never
that Joe
becomes
Biden,
president
after
again.
that debate.
Not right.
That it was more likely that Trump would win after that debate. That
Well, I
what
don't
you
know.
saw
I don't
there,
know that. I don't know that.
But that's what you were
again,
hearing from the members.
Well, what you're hearing is one thing. What the president decided was his decision. This great, consequential president of the United States, so many great things he did for our country, which he's continuing to do. God bless him for this prison, the return of the prisoners from Russia. Just masterful, virtuoso, diplomat, and the rest.
He's obviously in pain, and he's handled it so well in terms of being gracious and all that. And you cared so much about him. Have you reached out to him? You said that you...
So I'm going to sneeze.
That's okay. God bless you. Sorry.
I don't know why.
Live television. No.
Excuse me, I don't know why.
No. Have you reached out to him? You said you haven't talked, so I'm just wondering.
No, we haven't spoken, but everybody's busy. You know, another is to say, he's freeing prisoners. Do you understand what a virtuoso performance that was? The prisoners having to make trades from different countries and all the rest. So he's busy, and we're all busy, and we have this campaign, and he has said beautiful things now about Tim Walz as well. So it isn't a question of what's not important is when he or I speak. What's important is that the American people hear his message, see what he has done. We show the difference between the two in terms of it. One of the great distinctions I like to make, it's my personal favorite, for one reason or another, you'll know. When, obviously, we respect people's views on the woman's right to choose with Roe v. Wade, not one Republican voted for us to enshrine it as law in our country. Okay, I'm Italian Catholic, Italian-American Catholic. I understand some of that attitude. I have it in my own family. However, when we put on the floor a bill that said women have a right to contraception, some people were like, why are you doing that? You're giving them an out. They're going to look sane for a change. 8 Republicans voted that women have a right to contraception. 195 of them said no. So again, when we're talking about creation of jobs, freedom of women.
So these are the issues that you really want to... Now, I want to ask you about the book, because in the book you reveal you had a very difficult conversation with Donald Trump, for one thing.
Yeah.
It was the day he was going to the UN, and you were telling him that you were starting the impeachment inquiry, the commission, the committee.
He said what he was doing that day, and I said what I was doing that day.
Donald Trump is now most likely not going to go to trial for all that you investigated before the election, and maybe if he wins, then the trial of the election being overturned will never take place.
Well, because we have a rogue Supreme Court. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Mitch McConnell.
Let me ask you about Paul Pelosi and the invasion, the attack on him. It's really a miracle that he survived.
No.
He came that close. Do you blame the people who targeted you and demonized you?
Yeah, I think they share some responsibility for that. Yeah. Well, not only that, earlier than that, the Republican Party, with cloven feet, head, horns, really, actually, they started under Clinton, Hillary, and Bill Clinton. They were the politics of personal destruction. And then they transferred it to me. You know why? Because I was effective. I was getting bills passed. I was raising money to win the Congress and to retain that majority and the rest, and they had to take me down. But when they were doing it, they went into a different territory of political debate, and it fed a flame, it fueled a flame. And so, but that was before. After, to see the President of the United States, his family, some governors, leaders in the Republican Party make a joke of it, that was pathetic for the party. Not as pathetic, however, that after January 6th, the assault on the Capitol, the Congress, the Constitution of the United States, that overwhelmingly the Republicans came back in the room and overwhelmingly voted not to accept the voting of the Electoral College, the peaceful transfer of power. So we have a problem here. We want to diffuse it, and that's why let's not even talk about it. Let's just talk about the glory of Kamala and Tim, the promise that they have put out there, the enthusiasm that they have generated, and to make a distinction when it comes to the kitchen table about jobs and education. They want to eliminate the Department of Education now.
You know, you also write about working on the financial services with the former Treasury Secretary,
yes.
Republican. You talk about John McCain
Right.
and talking to him, and he gave you a heads up he was going to vote the key vote to save Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. So there used to be bipartisanship. You write about this throughout your book.
Well, the Republican Party has been hijacked. It is now a cult, and they should take it back because the public needs a strong Republican Party. The grand old party, great things they've done for the country, great leadership that they have provided. And what now? What now? Now. So, and we just have to win the election. They have told me, some of the Republicans, you have to beat them in the general because we can't beat them in the primary. And then we will come back to our debate on the issues. What is the role of government since the beginning of our country? Just the competition of ideas and the excitement of it all.
Well, I hope you'll come back. We can talk during the convention or before about this campaign and more about the book, because it's the end of the hour, so we're out of time. But
there you are. Well, it's wonderful to be with you.
It's great to
Thank
be with you.
My pleasure, and I'll tell Paul you asked about him. Thank you.
Well, we're glad that
Onward to victory, Kamala and Tim.
Ever the campaigner, ever the politician, the art of power.
Thank you.
And fortunately, he is recovering well, as we understand.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much,
much.
Madam Speaker.